Finally, just a few tips about maintaining yourself and your attitude and your happiness while you work in this profession. Now, we've talked throughout the semester about the difficult aspects of this job as well as the rewarding aspects of this profession, I think. But keep in mind that there are specific things that we have to do in this field in order to maintain ourselves. I have seen too many people come into this work and leave it, even though they have the skills and they have the drive to help people and to contribute a lot to the betterment of the world as well as to their individual clients, but they leave the field because they're approaching the work from an unrealistic attitude, or they're not taking care of themselves in the process of helping others, or they're letting the kinds of things beyond their control eat at them too much. And so this is just some tips from Eileen Gambrill, and it's a very short chapter, and yet there's a lot of information in here I think that's very useful to you as you look at long-term maintenance. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there are many things that you can do in order to help yourself deal with the stresses of the job that include things like burnout and compassion fatigue and secondary trauma or vicarious trauma, as it's called, as well as frustrations with bureaucracies that we have to deal with, and disappointments with sometimes lack of progress with clients. All of these kinds of things can be managed, and if you manage them well and you take care of yourself, you're going to have a long and very fruitful career where you really make a difference in people's lives. And so just some things to think about as we wind down this semester and uh, launch you on your way to your further education in social work. So stay philosophical. First tip, I think, is view the uncertainty in your work with clients and the setbacks with clients as opportunities that will help you learn how to approach things in a different and more effective way in the future. And when you feel uncertainty in what you're doing, use that as a cue to see if you can decrease the uncertainty, whether it's through research or through consultations or supervision or whatever it might be. Never lose sight of the fact that you're working well in your practice, unless you have a private practice, and that has its own set of issues. But if you're working for an agency, don't lose sight of the context of your work. There are limitations in what you can do. There are limitations in what the agency can achieve. Sometimes it's due to funding. Sometimes it's due to bureaucratic requirements. Sometimes it's due to legalities. It might be a different number of things, but there are realistic limits in every practice setting you have. If you have your own office and you hang out your shingle and you're your own boss and you set your own hours, rest assured you're going to find a lot of issues related to that, because you have to be out there recruiting clients and talking to people and convincing them that that you're a good alternative for treatment. And you're going to be dealing a lot with insurance agencies, which can be very frustrating to you. You're going to get paid late sometimes by your clients, or some insurance companies aren't going to pay you on time. Believe me, there's a lot of frustrations with individual practice, private practice as well. So keep your context in mind at all times, and understand that these are a part of the work. This is a part of the profession. I was told a number of times over the years, and I worked for private nonprofit agencies. I worked for county government. I worked for state government in two different states, and the people at times told me that they were um, pretty impressed with the fact that I could maintain a sense of calm and what's the word? I think hope in in the face of bureaucratic BS all of the time, and a lot of that has to do with just understanding realistically where I'm working, and knowing what to expect from my organization. Likewise with society as a whole, there are many things in society that we have to deal with that are unfair to our clients, and we have to work to change that, but also acknowledge the reality of where things are at as far as those social issues are concerned right now. At this time, politically speaking, this is a very very challenging time for those of us in social services. I think when we see what's going on with our federal government and seeing many state governments following suit and really governments all around the world, kind of turning away from some of the values that we hold dear, and it can be very discouraging to us. But we have to keep this in mind as just something that we're going through at this point. It's a phase in our history. Your philosophy of practice is something that's going to influence your job satisfaction as well. What do you expect of your clients? What do you expect of you? Why are you doing the work that you're doing? And you know, how do you expect to be doing it? I think I told you earlier in the semester this one of my philosophies, and you'll probably have a series of them as you go along. But one of my beliefs is that and I've learned this the hard way is I had my own difficulty in saying goodbye to clients sometimes, and I found myself saddened by losing contact with some clients over the course of my profession and things, and not knowing what really happened with them. And I've come to realize that what we do is we join the client in their life path, but it is our client's life path. They're the ones that are making the decisions. Of course, it's all about self-determination, and we're there to help guide them. But in the end, they're the ones that determine the course that they're going to pursue, and it may or may not be the thing that we think is best for them. It's really their decision, right? And so we join the client on their life path, and after a while, uh, they leave us, we leave them, or we have a mutual parting, and they go on their way without us, and we don't know where their path leads more often than not. And so don't make yourself out to be the person that has to be the person who makes the change that will always be remembered. And because you don't know what happens with your clients, and we're gonna see. Well, that's actually the next thing, that in this job you never know whether you've done anything right, and especially with kids, because a lot of times you never see your clients again, and you this is, I think, the other thing. One of the beliefs that I have about my work and my philosophy is that if I don't see immediate change, when I've worked with somebody long enough, I know that things that I have said and done with them leave an impression with them, and it might be 5 years from now, it might be 10 years from now, something that I said or did will shake loose in their brain because of something that's going on in their lives, and it will make a difference then. You won't know it, but you have to believe that it's going to happen, and that's a part of your of the philosophy. I think the way you keep going in your profession, and the way you keep at it, even when you don't get those rewards of seeing great successes go on because of your work. And also, this all kind of is implied in this, so recognize the limits of the help that you can provide, because you're not going to be able to help everybody you see. It's just not going to be possible. As a profession, this slide says, we might promise to solve the world's problems, but um, as Gambrill says, utopian goals distract us from working in many small ways to minimize avoidable suffering, and may encourage a drift into dysfunctional reactions. Keep your expectations realistic, and again, always remember the context of our lives and our work. Again, your professional practice is influenced by the context in which it occurs. Take occasional timeouts to reflect on your practice and to keep a larger picture in mind. This helps to resist the wearing down effect of the difficult work environments and the limited resources that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Take some time out, get away from things. Again, we'll talk about this in a second, but your vacations, your breaks, and those things are very important to you. It helps you keep a perspective. Attend to the In your work, attend to the interrelationship between personal troubles and environmental circumstance. Always pay attention to that. And don't ignore political and economic influences. You may not always be able to do anything about those influences, but understand the impact they have on your clients and on their situation. This will help you avoid using ineffective interventions where you're trying to change the client in order to fit into a sick situation, and you wind up blaming yourself or your clients when you're not successful. Take what steps you can to make changes that improve services. But remember, keeping the big picture in mind reminds you that change can and does occur, but that it's often going to take time and effort. Develop positive alternatives to dysfunctional reactions. I like that. I like that suggestion. Do not do these handicapping things like becoming fatalistic or blaming others or blaming yourself. Do not do your job in a routine and uncaring manner, because that's the way that you protect yourself against disappointment. Don't congratulate yourself for services when really those services aren't being provided either. Be realistic about what's going on. Don't claim that you don't make decisions, because you're making decisions all the time, and that's a big deal with Gambrill. She keeps mentioning that throughout the book, that we do make decisions all the time, even when we're working for an agency that seems to, with 600-page, 700-page manuals of how we're supposed to respond to different situations. Within the context of those limits, you are making decisions that are life and death, oftentimes, all of the time. Don't struggle on by yourself or isolate yourself and think that no one will understand. And if there's anything that I've seen that has been the unhealthiest response to the stress of work, it's people who isolate themselves and won't talk to their coworkers, won't accept supervision, won't seek out help from other people. In child protection, that's a particularly stressful, sometimes dangerous, but particularly stressful job to have if you're doing investigations, for instance. And I remember a couple of times when I could see workers just flaming out, coming in the morning and closing their office door, and only opening the office door to go out on field visits. And when I would talk with a worker about that, it was, well, they were dictating, or they were taking case notes and didn't want to be interrupted. But when in and day out this went on, they missed meetings. Those kinds of things, and the support you get from each other, even at times when difficult work is being completed and you're not sure you're doing good work, the support you get from your coworkers and from your supervisors are vital. You're not always going to be successful, and it's okay to admit that you're having troubles with your clients, that you don't know what to do. Reach out to your coworkers in those situations. Don't isolate yourself. Do use some of these constructive strategies to identify desired changes and how you can attain those changes and take action to achieve those changes. This is for you as well as for your client, for that matter. When you're burned out, acknowledge that, recognize it. If you need a break, if you're experiencing compassion fatigue, take actions to counteract those particular problems. And there are things you can do to counteract those and relieve those problems. Be accurate in your evaluation of your client's progress. Share your findings with your clients and other stakeholders, and again, be honest and be able to acknowledge that in some areas progress is being made, others not. Take responsibility for your decisions. Work with others to see if the factors that limit options available to your client or to you can be changed so that there are more options available. Form coalitions when the situation seems to conspire against positive change for your clients. Find other people who are looking to make the same kind of changes, and try to work together to bring about change in the community or the societal or the agency level, whatever it might be. Reach out and connect. I just can't say that enough. Stay in touch with other professionals. Talk to your coworkers. Now, this doesn't mean that you should expect to have your primary emotional support in the work setting, because the work setting is your professional setting. And I've seen that happen also among workers where um, they wanted they were getting their primary personal relationships and personal support as well as professional support in the work setting. So a lot of times personal troubles in workers' lives got mixed up with professional troubles. And it's not to say that you shouldn't share. I do believe it's important that you share your personal, what's going on in your personal life with your coworkers, if unless it's some violation of privacy in your mind. But the more your coworkers and your supervisor know what's going on with you, the more helpful they're going to be able to do. But don't expect the work site to be your primary source of emotional support, because you should be looking for that from other sources, other people. But still reach out and connect with people around you, support them when you can, and but look for professional support, I suppose, is what is more than anything else, and for the emotional issues that are attached to that as well. But understand, it's your work setting. It's not your it's not the place where you go to 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 get your primary emotional support in your life. This is something I'm adding here. Seek out new training opportunities regularly. Look for conferences. Look for new areas that you can put your attention. There's a number of different reasons that helps. It helps to guard against burnout, to develop new areas of interest and new areas of expertise. And of course, it's obvious that it's going to help your client if you continue to develop your skills over the years. Stay fresh and stay aware of what's going on in the field, because things are changing constantly in this field. Take an activist stance. Take action on an agency level and at other levels whenever you can. If your caseloads are too high, then lobby to lower caseload size. Now, don't expect that that's going to happen just because you begin to call this to someone's attention. But you can talk to your legislator, you can talk to your supervisor, your administrators. Those kinds of things, advocate for increased funding for whatever job you're doing, so that more people can be hired, so that your caseloads can be smaller. If you need services and they're not available in the area, um, do what you can to help your clients, and that may mean only just providing emotional support, as Gambrill says, but give the help you can to your clients, but try to take steps to deal with the services that are missing. Bring your administrators or legislators into the discussion about that. Your communities. See if you can develop any coalitions of professionals to get services established or to advocate. You know, there's a number of different suggestions here. I don't have to read them to you, but and being involved in the political process now. Most jobs you can't do that while you're on the job, but once you're off the job, being involved in a political process is something that can be very important in our work. I think to make sure that we support candidates who are going to be supportive of our efforts and our concerns and our clients' needs, and try to get them into office so that positive change can happen on a legislative level. And you'll find out whether you're working in, even in private practice for that matter, but whether you're working for public agencies or private nonprofits, um, funding will come from your legislators. And even if you're depending upon insurance payments in a private practice, sometimes those like Medicaid and Medicare and those kinds of things get public funding. And so the political process has a lot to do with what we can and cannot do for our clients. And on the school level, the educational level, lobby for more course content in areas involving social action, community organization, social development, diversity, and oppression. All of these kinds of things that go beyond the individual work with clients, but look at the bigger picture and how society impacts clients. As much training as you can get in this area is going to help you in your practice. I don't have to tell um, most people anymore to take advantage of technology to ease the burden of case recording and evaluation. There are a number of different ways that electronics have made case recording easier if you know how to use them and you use it wisely. It's really a big help. I can't begin to tell you how different case records are today than they were 20 years ago. So take advantage of technology when it becomes available to you. Be a lifelong learner, upgrade your competencies, and learn from your mistakes and from your successes. The risks you take in in your work, whatever that might be on a larger level, or even with your clients, and in terms of trying out some new techniques that maybe have some proven value to them, whatever that is, that these are learning opportunities for you. And when you get feedback on your work, whether it's from your supervisor or your coworkers or the clients themselves, or just by looking at progress or lack thereof, respond to that feedback, and take a look and see how that can alter or reinforce the kinds of interventions and the way you approach your job. Here, take on those challenges presented by burnout, compassion fatigue, and vicarious trauma. Don't let it defeat you. And these are just a few ideas, and there are much better ideas if you really study this area. But take care of yourself and live your life outside of work. Employ healthy boundaries in your work life. Go home on time. If you have to work over, and sometimes you may find yourself having to do that, if you can, work in your office, stay at your desk if you can. Don't take case records home, don't take your work home. Keep home as a sanctuary away from work. Have that division so that when you go home, you don't have to think about work. It's a little like when people are having trouble falling asleep at night, and they're insomniac and they toss and turn and they toss and turn. One of the things that we recommend to those persons is to get out of bed and go sit in a chair somewhere. If you're worried about something, if you can't get your mind off of something and it's keeping you awake, find a worry chair and go and sit down in it and stay there until you've thought things through as much as you can, and then go to bed. But separate the bed from the worry and from the sleeplessness, and the same thing with home life and work. Separate your home life psychologically and physically from your work life if at all possible. Take your breaks, take your lunch hour. Um, don't work through lunch day after day after day after day. It's not healthy for you to do that anyway, but it really is good for you to break from the stress of work, no matter how pressing these problems are, and just get your mind on something else for a little while, because when you come back, you're going to be fresher again. Take vacations that you have coming to you. Pursue your family life. Take care of your family. Pursue hobbies. Find some good recreation. In Alaska, a lot of people like cross country skiing or running and things like that. But it could be something like bowling, or it could be yoga classes, all sorts of different kinds of things, meditation exercises, those kinds of things that can really reduce your stress and provide you with some exercise, perhaps. And all good for you physically anyway, but it's also very good for you psychically, and it's going to make you more effective behind your desk. Healthy diet. Avoid overuse of intoxicants. That's I think a mistake that some people make is going home and drinking, or getting high or something to get their mind off of stuff, and that's just not a healthy way to deal with the pressures at work. Get good rest. Um, Avoid inefficiencies in agency bureaucracy which contribute to failure, and uh, I'm not sure specifically what that means. I mean, I have a sense of what she's talking about here, but I guess what she's saying is to talk with your administrators about things that make work more difficult and more inefficient, but do it in a helpful way. I had particularly one employee in particular who was. I may have mentioned this earlier in the semester. It was it just had a lot of insight into the way the agency functioned, and the kinds of things that the agency did that maybe contributed to some client problems, but certainly contributed to inefficiencies, and couldn't bring it, just absolutely could not bring it about, bring it to people's attention in a constructive fashion, or a respectful fashion, but just constantly complained and complained loudly, and to where the point was is that no one would listen to him. The administrators immediately would stop listening if this particular person was going to start complaining, and so if you're going to remember, be respectful. Um, even if the policies of the agency aren't respectful, and even if administration doesn't seem to be responding and respecting what you're asking, be respectful. Understand your place in a bureaucracy and respect that hierarchy, but be persistent in a respectful manner in raising questions and issues, and try to focus the problem on what the client needs, not what you need. And by that I mean, not that your caseloads are too big, but that you can't spend sufficient time with your clients. You see the difference there. It isn't decreasing your workload; it's increasing your time with your clients. So try to keep the focus on what needs to happen so that you can provide better service, and that's going to come across a lot better, and probably result in better outcomes eventually for you. So keep yourself together so you can stay at it. Place your client's interests in the forefront, and this will give you the courage and the purpose to act on their behalf. And use your critical thinking skills as a guide for the kinds of questions you're going to raise. You're not going to change the world, but focus on the things that are most important and the things that are maybe achievable, and go about trying to change those things on a larger level in a respectful fashion, and as much as possible working with the persons who are implementing policy, not against them. Cultivate that courage to raise those questions that ought to be asked so that the options can be discovered. There are, in diversity training, there is discussion about having courageous conversations with individuals when they, and by that, that sometimes when people are well, microaggressions and different kinds of things like this, where people are displaying a lack of respect for cultural considerations and of others, those things, to confront those things, but confront them in a way that the person can hear them. Remember, basic communication training says that it is your responsibility as the speaker to say things in a way that the listener can process them. If the other person thinks that you're attacking them, they're not going to hear you. They're going to be defending themselves, and so it's your responsibility to bring these messages across in a way that the other person can listen and understand and work with you. Raise those questions in a way that other people can listen. Again, keeping the focus on clients rather than your own needs or staff needs is going to make it easier to raise those questions. Setbacks and detours are not dead ends, they're just setbacks and detours. So, just stepping out of these slides and everything, take care of yourself in this job. Do try to practice some of these things and get more information about dealing with the stresses of the job, because you've got good training, and you've obviously, I mean, everybody in this class, I listened to you enough to know that you've got a commitment to what you're doing, and you want to make a difference in people's lives, and we need you in the social work field. You're the kind of person that needs to be out there, and it's a part of our profession. And so take care of yourself so that you can stay in this job, and make a full career of it and help people all those years along the way. So that's it, and it's been a real pleasure working with you. I'll tell you this again later on, but I've enjoyed the opportunity to share what little I have to offer to you, and to be a part of your development in this field, and hope we encounter each other again in the very near future. Take care.